Welcome to Let's Talk Cabling, your gateway to the world of ICT. Get ready to dive deep into knowledge that empowers.
Thursday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That can only mean one thing. Live after hours with your favorite RCDD, Chuck Bowser. You know that's me. Where you get to ask your questions on installation, design, certification, career path. I answer a little bit of everything. Everything. You heard me right. I said Thursday night, 6 p.m. Because I missed last night's podcast. I missed last night's live stream, and I missed it because Florida, we're having a little bit of weather. In case you haven't been watching the news lately, last week there was a day where the state of Florida got hit by, ready for this, 20,000 lightning strikes in one 24-hour period. 20,000 lightning strikes in one 24-hour period. How about that? Oh my gosh! Oh, holy Toledo! But wait, there's more. Last night, or no, yeah, yesterday, we had 31,000 lightning strikes. Yeah, and as I'm saying this, I hear thunder in the background. Please not again. Give me a break from the lightning. So I apologize for not doing the show last week, but that's what happens sometimes when you live in the wonderful state of Florida. Florida McFly's in the house. Larry Smith sometimes in the house. Now, we always start off with the acronym challenge. The acronym challenge. The acronym challenge for today is going to be MPO. MPO. What does that acronym mean? I'll give you a hint. Daryl, the RCDD's in the house. Hey, Daryl. I was wondering if any of my regulars were going to show up because this is on a Thursday, not on a Wednesday. We had a bit of weather yesterday, so I was hampered in being able to do my live stream last night. So I'm doing it today. MPO. I'm looking for that acronym for the acronym challenge. What does MPO stand for? Again, it has something to do with fiber. So we've got some chats coming in. Let's go ahead and fire up those chats so I can see them. There it is. If you are broadcasting on TikTok, it's not coming through. I am broadcasting on TikTok. And there's a bunch of people swiping through it. So, people in TikTok, let me know if you see it now. So, there we go. Yeah, I apologize about last night. We had some weather, and it just wasn't meant to be last night. It just really, really was. So nobody answered the acronym challenge. It was MPO, and that stands for, ready for this? Multi-fiber push-on connector. It's used in high-density fiber applications. Used a lot for pre-terminated fiber trunk assemblies. We also got to do, what are you drinking? Chuck is drinking ginger ale Zevia again because it is my favorite drink. Put in the chat box, what are you drinking? Just for those who need proof, there's my Zevia ginger ale can that I just poured it out of. Tell me in the chat box, what are you drinking? What are you drinking? We're missing a lot of our regulars here, so I bet you Shazi's probably drinking a Diet Dr. Pepper if I know him. Did you catch last week's show? Did you? I did a 40-minute show with Gary Runkle from Alpha Tech Team Solutions, and we talked about designing and installing and installation tips for video surveillance systems. We covered, NVR formatting, where to aim the cameras and stuff like that. Kalen is in the house. He's drinking a lemonade when his food gets there. Yeah, if you missed it, don't worry. It's on YouTube or Spotify, a bunch of other places as well. Got some really cool shows coming up in the next couple of weeks. Got a show coming out next week on how will the copper tariff affect you? Remember, there's a 50% tariff on copper. So I reached out to somebody in distribution, and we're going to be talking about that, talking about how it could affect you, what products can it affect, and even what you can do to help alleviate that. Also, I got the show behind that one called Top 10 code violations done by low voltage installers. Top 10 code violations. That's going to come out the week after that. Also, I just got somebody reached out to me on one of the platforms. I don't remember which one it was. I want to say it was TikTok, maybe even Instagram. They want me to do a show on terms and conditions. Terms and conditions. So I'm going to do that because that's a great subject. If you ever have an idea for a show, send it to me in a message, right? So yeah, because if you said it here in this, I probably won't see it, and it just it's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. So let's get on with our questions. Question number 1. This comes from Wendy on Instagram. How do I move up from cable pulling to becoming a technician? Well, here's the first part of that. What is a technician? I know what BICSI says a technician is, but when it comes to companies, every company is going to have a different qualification for what is a technician. So my first thing to you would be meet with your supervisor, express your interest in becoming a technician, find out what are the requirements, what's the knowledge base, what's the skill sets required for becoming a technician, because they might be different than what I'm going to give you some tips, but they might be different than what I say. So always check with your supervisor first. So the first thing I'm going to say is, and as an installer or cable puller right now, you probably already have this to some level. Learning to read pull prints and floor plans and cable schedules. Okay, so yeah, so again, what does an open triangle mean? What does a half-filled triangle mean? What does it mean when it has a line underneath of it? Right? There's the cable guy. What's happening, cable guy? Yes, I was missed last night's live stream because of some weather. Of course, typical Florida. Hey, make sure that you subscribe to and watch the cable guy. He's a great guy. He's on here tonight. I like watching his live streams. Soon, I'm going to start doing my live streams up in the podcast studio while I'm putting together the podcast studio. That's going to be cool, right? That'll be cool. I'll be in there installing conduit, putting down static flooring, putting up plywood, putting up ladder rack, moving my relay rack up there, putting in J-hooks, running cable, terminating cable, terminating, showing people how to terminate 66 blocks, BICS blocks, and a bunch of other stuff as well too. So watch out for that. So getting back to the question from Wendy. There's my ADHD for you. Squirrel. Squirrel. Hey, let me know in the chat box. Do you suffer from ADHD? Are you easily distracted as I am? Because I'm telling you, if you could only see my office, I mean, you see it on the camera, but you're seeing what I want you to see. Just outside, it literally looks like a bomb went off. There's stuff everywhere. And I told my wife just the other day, because she made a comment about my office and she doesn't clean it because it's so messy. And I said, but that is what it looks like inside my brain. Yes. Yes, there you go. So yeah, make sure you learn how to read floor plans and cable schedules. Also, not just floor plans for low voltage, but also learn how to read floor plans for electricians and HVAC and sprinklers. So that way you can learn the beard of knowledge is in the house. That way you can learn to avoid conflict with those. Learn to read elevation, so that way you don't mount your cables at the same height as theirs, right? And then also, as a cable puller, you're probably already pulling cable now, dropping cable, roughing it in. Are you terminating cables yet? If you're not, ask your project lead to start giving you, let you start terminating right now. And then, or if you are terminating, ask him to turn around and help you teach you things that you don't know how to terminate, right? Maybe it might be a fiber optic connector. It might be something else. There's lots of things that you can do. You might also want to take the BICSI Installer 1 class. Lots of great, if you can get your company to pay for that. And if you can't, okay. But there are free resources out there. As a matter of fact, if you've got about $80 to spend, I highly suggest, and I know I've talked about this before, and I don't make any, I really wish that I got paid affiliate fees from BICSI. I really do. Buy this set. It's called the ICT Pocket Field Guide set. Okay, there is the general one, there is the copper one, and then the fiber one. This is a great resource to have. It's easy to read, got diagrams, explain stuff really well. It's going to help you go a long way to try to reach that technician role that you want. And then find people around you who you feel have good technical knowledge and try to emulate them. Ask them why do they do things that way? Because that's going to help you grow as a technician. Question number 2, and this comes from Low Volt Guy on Reddit. Do I need a certification like BICSI or can I learn on the job? This is such a great question. All right, you my favorite RCD Daryl in here. Hey, there you go. So here's the rub, right? So there are a lot of certifications out there. There's copper certifications, fiber certifications, design certifications, project management certifications, lots of different types of certifications. But I know the backside on this is help on the job site who is using a ComScope calculator for pipe fill ratio on Cat 6A, but they are ignoring. Huh? What? Ignoring the 490s and over 100 feet. Oh. Okay. I'll address that one in just a second, Cole. So getting back to Low Volt's question, certifications, they definitely help you. If I see somebody with a certification, that tells me that they are treating it as a career, not a job. They're going above and beyond and they're learning stuff, right? Now, I got to say this, just because you have a certification does not mean that you're good. There are people who are good at taking classes and passing exams. Most low voltage people, most low voltage people um, are tactile learners. They really learn by putting their hands on things. So the certification does not guarantee that that person's great. It just means they've gone through a class, they took a test, they passed the test, they took a hands-on and passed it's not going to hurt you. It's going to open up doors for you, doors for potential jobs, within your company. Maybe be a QA project manager. It's going to open up doors for end users, do projects for them, stuff like that. So it's not going to hurt you. And there's lots of them out there. I mentioned I put the meows in the house. Hey, yeah, how's it going? I mentioned the BICSI. BICSI's got several of them. So does FOA, Fiber Optic Association. They got their CFOT, Certified Fiber Optic Technician. Let me think of a couple others off my head. Light Brigade just came out with some certifications and stuff like that. But the key thing is not just certification. It's always keep learning on the job. I'm gonna say this louder for the people in the back. Always keep learning on the job. The minute you think you know everything is when you're a danger in this industry. I give them in my class all the time. You can't teach me nothing. I've been doing this for 15 years. I get it. You have a mind is like a parachute. It only functions when it's open. So always keep learning, right? Always look to see what certifications are out there, or even the lingo. Oh my gosh, our industry is horrible with lingo. And the old tech guys in the house. Our industry's horrible with acronyms and changing acronyms. So it's going to be hard on you. Ed, the old tech guy said, okay, oh, no, sorry, the cable guy says, when you stop learning, you stop growing, and that is a true statement. True statement, right? And then also, having a certification is, again, it shows that you are committed to your craft. It shows you're committed to your craft, to your employer, to your customer, and it's going to open up all of them kinds of doors for you. This will be my 25th year in BICSI and just learned new stuff today. Exactly, right? Exactly. I learn new stuff all the time, and I got 40 plus years in this industry, and I'm telling you, that's it's you gotta be good back. Going back to Cole's question in TikTok, Cole is asking. He says, "Help on a job site who's using a ComScope calculator for pipe fill on Cat 6A." But they're ignoring the 490s and over 100 foot. Okay, so here's the rub with that, Cole. The 40% fill ratio is in the code book. That's table 9.1. If you have 2 or more cables, the maximum fill ratio for conduit is 40%. Okay, That's in the code. Now, when you're talking about piping now, you're talking about 490s and no more than 100 feet. That is best practices, not code. That's best practices. So code says that they can have up to 490s when installing conduit. That's three 90-degree bends. 90 plus 90 is 180. 180 plus 180 is 360. When you pull cable through a 90-degree bend for low voltage cable, you got to pull a little bit harder to get it through that conduit. And that can stretch copper, break copper, change twist rates. Okay. And then also the 100-foot rule, no more than 100 feet between pull points, is also a best practice. So you didn't give me the whole gist of everything was in your comment, but if your contract says that your work will meet the ANSI standards and the BICSI best practices, you have a foot to stand on. Okay, you have a foot to stand on. So um, they're not using 40%; they are using 40% fill and not 30% fill on a new install. Well, you can use 40%. 40% just takes you to the maximum. That's just the deal. You always want to leave room for growth. So you really got to look at the contract. What does the contract say? Are the electricians putting in the conduit, and does your contract say that your work will meet and exceed? Oh my gosh, this just reminded me. So I mentioned at the very beginning of this program, the very beginning of the live stream, I mentioned some future episodes coming up. And one of the episodes, I don't know if you were here, Cole, when I said this. One of the episodes that's going to be coming out really soon, within the next couple of weeks, is how to use terms and conditions to protect yourself. And this is going to be a perfect one for that, right? You can put in the terms and conditions that your price is reflective of the conduit being installed per the ANSI and BICSI best practices. If they're not, then you reserve the right to come back for additional charges. So that's going to be a great thing for that right there. Question number 3. I'm not good at math. Can I still be a good low voltage technician? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Right? Absolutely. But you didn't really say how bad you were at math. Here's the thing. When I was in high school, I suffered in math. I hated math. But I didn't find. I came into when I became about 35. I was about estimate. I got promoted to being an estimator, and I learned that I loved math. It was just really cool to see how things can change by using math. So, you know, but most of the calculations that we're doing they're not necessarily hard, but we have things out there to help us, like apps and cheat sheets. Like Cole was just mentioning the ComScope fill ratio thing. Hilti has a fill ratio thing. Almost all the manufacturers have some type of a fill ratio calculator, right? And my wife just text messaged me. I was just calling to see if you could be blah blah blah. Yeah, well, I'm doing a live stream right now, woman. Doing a live stream. So yeah, apps are your best friends. I mentioned the FOA. They got one for doing fiber optic loss budgets. So there's lots of apps out there that can help you doing that, right? So realistically, the most math that you're going to be able to do is okay, well, we're doing 10 runs and there's 3 cables per faceplate. That's going to be 30 cables. That's going to be the basis of your math. All the other stuff you can do with apps and stuff like that, right? So learn with repetition. Question number 4: what is the difference between an installer and a technician? What is the difference between an installer and a technician? Yeah, tell me in the chat box, what do you think is the difference between an installer and a technician? Tell me what your thoughts are. So for me, an installer is going to be somebody who pulls cable, terminates cable, tests cable. Okay. A technician is going to pull, terminate, and test as well, but they also have troubleshooting skills and even some oh, my wife just called and it just threw my whole brain for a loop there. So yeah, terminate the troubleshooting skills and also some basic management skills, like learning how to forecast material. Okay, we're gonna start doing jacks next week. Here's a good one. Communication. This is a big one between installers and technicians. Communication skills. Communication skills. Because as a technician, you might have to send daily updates to your project manager. You might have to talk to and have a conversation with the customer, right? So yeah, they troubleshoot, they program, they might even do programming for phones and network switches, but they're usually leaning more towards lead, right? Leaning more towards lead. And there's a higher expectation when it comes to technicians. If a technician and an installer both do something wrong, let's say it's the exact same thing, a technician, yes, would you please, Kaylin? Just let her know I'm doing a live stream because I missed last night. So they're going to be held to a higher level because they are a technician. But it's doable. There are many, many people, thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people have made the jump from installers to technicians. It's not that hard. It's very doable. Just, again, you got to be that constant learner. Question number 5. This came to me from LinkedIn. How can I learn fiber if my company only does copper? Oh, that's a great question. Great question. The company only does copper. How can I learn fiber? You're probably going to have to do this all on your own because if your company's not doing fiber now, they're probably not going to send you to fiber school. They might, but if they're only doing copper, they probably won't. So you're going to have to learn on your own. There are some free resources out there. The first one. Read Cable Installation and Maintenance Magazine. It's free. Go to cablinginstall.com, sign up for it. The magazine comes out every 2 months, I think it is. Great resource. There's also fiberu.org. Fiberu.org. That's a free fiber optic course. And there's lots of great fiber videos on YouTube. Just when you watch fiber videos on YouTube, make sure you evaluate where that information is coming from. Okay, so if you want to learn how to run an OTDR, a video from EXFO might be a good video to watch. Of watching a video from 2 chucks in a truck, maybe not. Okay, so keep that in mind. So evaluate that source. You might even want to maybe volunteer or shadow on a fiber job, even if it's unpaid. I know people don't like the people says, "Oh, I want to get paid," but you know what? Sometimes you got to do stuff to climb that ladder, but if your company's only doing copper, I'm not sure how that's going to do it. But you know what you could do is, I remember once about 15 years ago, I did some cabling for a church for free. I mean, I volunteered my labor to do it, and I got companies to give the church cable and patch panels and a bunch of other stuff like that. And so that way you can kind of do it and learn. And there's a content creator, Jason Lehman. He's on, I can't remember the name of his channel off the top of my head, but he's on YouTube and he's also on LinkedIn. And what he did was he flat out says, I don't know anything about fiber. And he's getting companies to send him stuff to play with it and learn it. How good is that, right? How good is that? So, maybe get that. Maybe if you do a demo job where there's some fiber, maybe some fiber optic enclosures or adapter panels, and they're going to just throw it away. Take it home. Buy. Did you know Milwaukee's starting to sell fiber termination tools? Yeah, I'm gonna have to go check that out. Fiber termination tools. Yeah, that's very cool. So yeah, maybe buy some fiber termination tools and start playing with. Just remember, always be aware that there's dangers to terminating fiber, right? So, work over a dark mat if possible, nice light, wash your hands afterwards, don't eat or drink at your fiber station. There's lots of rules. And also make sure you always dispose of your fiber in an approved scraps container. Don't use electrical tape rolled over backwards. Don't use soda bottles, soda cans, beer bottles, beer cans, Parmesan cheese cans, red ribbon stuffed couches, right? What is the best free study guide for the RCD test? Okay, so there's lots of paid things out there. Lots of paid things. So if you go to Oh, I'm trying to think of the name of that's there's a Quizlet. That's what it is. Quizlet. If you go to Quizlet, there's a whole bunch of RCDD flashcards. But keep in mind, those RCD flashcards were made by people, so there might be errors. To me, I think here, Marcus, I'm going to give you the best study plan right now. If you want to become an RCDD, number one, do it now. I was reading in a meeting minutes of one of the committees. They're going to start working on the 16th edition TDMM Q1 of 2027. That's only a year out. So, and then it'll be probably a year behind that when it actually gets published. So the 15th edition is only going to be around for another year or two. Do it now. So get your copy of the 14th edition TDMM, like this one right back here. And by the way, people think this is a background. No, this is this is real, buddy. It's real. So buy that 15th edition TDMM, read it. Read it. And then also buy a go to Office Depot, Office Max, or whoever it is, and buy blank index cards as you're reading it, highlight it, and then also on the front of the card, write a question, and then on the back, write the answer to it, and then just use those flashcards. It's a lot cheaper. It's a lot cheaper, I'm telling you. A lot cheaper. But there are some RC study programs out there. We just finished an RC study group last week. I'm not going to do another full RC study group till next year, but I am creating videos for each chapter. So there'll be a video for chapter 21, the project execution, a chapter for a video for telecommunication spaces and stuff like that. And I'm going to put that up on one of the learning platforms like Kajabi or something like that, and that'll be available for people to learn the TDMM, right? So there's your hints, Marcus. Question number 6, right? Is there a future in this trade, or will it be replaced by wireless or AI? This came to me from on TikTok. Here's the thing. The low voltage industry is not just pulling cable. It's voice cabling, data cabling, cabling for wireless access points, security, access control, digital electricity, nurse call cabling, and a bunch of other things. So wireless is not going to make low voltage go away, right? Low voltage is going to be around for a long time, a long time. Now, your other side of that question was, is it going to be replaced by AI? AI will never be going out into the field to pull, terminate, and test cabling. It will never be out there as the project manager shooting and receiving emails and doing schedules. AI will help us be more efficient in those jobs. I can certainly see a project manager or an estimator using AI to be more efficient at the job, but it's not going to replace their jobs. Okay. So, yeah, hands on, low voltage is going to be around for a long time. And the more, this whole AI trend right now, I've seen it happen before. I've been around for a while, in case you can't tell by the old gray hair. I've seen it happen before. I've seen it happen in the early 80s. I'm that old. Computers. Everybody's like, why are you going to get a computer? Computers are going to take people's jobs. Blah, 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 blah. And I saw a lot of people who were resistant to change. Nowadays, you can't even, well, you can, but it's a lot harder to function in today's society without a computer. Check and receive emails, streaming videos and learning things, computer-based classes. So it's going to be around for a long time. Low voltage is about as close to a future-proof trade as you can find. Okay? And here's why I say that. Because when the industry is in a hiccup and it's slowing down, companies generally want to move into smaller spaces to save on their rent. Well, they got to wire up those new spaces. When the economy's going and like gangbusters and growing, customers are moving into larger spaces, and those spaces need to be cabled. So it's about as a future-proof industry that you can find. It's about the closest you can find. Skill techs are always going to be in demand. The key is, again, we talked about that earlier with the questions earlier, certification, and then also constant learning. Question number 7, How do I become a project manager one day? there's a there's an old Chinese saying, and I hope I get this right. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. You're not going to become a project manager overnight. The key is decide that that's the way that you want to go, and then that's your destination, and figure out how to get to that destination. So you didn't mention in your comment what your job function was, Brandon. You didn't mention what it was. If there's already a project manager on that job or a lead tech, there's nothing wrong with you starting to track your own materials and your own daily logs. Right? There's nothing wrong with that. That would kind of get you in skill sets. As a matter of fact, when I worked for a company in Northern Virginia called TCI, Telecommunication Concepts Incorporated, they were in Springfield, Virginia. Right, Springfield, Virginia. So as a lead tech pulling cable, I would literally track the footage cables that we pulled every day. And again, this early adopter of technology. I had a computer. I built a spreadsheet, and I would put in and on the job site, I would write down my beginning numbers and my ending numbers right off the cables, so that way I knew exactly how much cable I pulled, and then I would create that chart. And then lo and behold, not too much long after that, they started requiring the cable crews to submit that information. Well, I already had it on a computer, and all I do is print it off and send it to them. And I got a comment once from the accounting lady, and she said, I really appreciate that there's never a math error in your stuff. Yeah, because I'm an early adopter and I did it on a computer because people were shying away from computers. So, but I wasn't the project manager on that job. I just started doing it on my own. I used to walk around. I used to have those little pocket notebooks that they have with spirals. I used to keep it in like a January 24th. I pulled 62 cables, dropped 82 cables, cleaned up the job site, blah, 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 blah. And more than once, I would have my supervisor say, "Hey, remember that job 3 weeks ago? How many cables you guys get pulled on a job?" I was like, "Well, I got bad memory." So I'd pull out my notebook. Oh, yeah, there it is. Yeah, the place over in Tyson's Corner. Yeah. So we pulled a total of 215 cables. There's still another 80 cables to go. That's going to set the foundation for you being a good project manager. Maybe you might want to start thinking about taking classes at your local community college, project management classes, learning how to use MS Project. I got an episode coming up with Project 360. Projects 360. Projects 360 is a project management estimation platform where you can estimate projects, project manage projects, and do a bunch of other stuff. They're going to be on the show. We're going to be doing the recording sometime next week, so it'll probably be 3 weeks or so before it gets released out into the podcast world. But so that's a show coming up, right? And then maybe ask your project manager, hey, my goal is to become a project manager one day to work beside you. Would you be my mentor? If you don't ask, the answer is always going to be what? Tell me in the chat box. If you don't ask, your answer is always going to be no. No. Exactly right. And you got to start thinking like a project manager. You got to start PGSC's in the house, Balto's in the house. Yeah, you got to start thinking like a project manager. Those are two different things, from thinking like a project manager and then thinking like an installer. Now I got a bunch of project management questions. So first question of project management: how do I manage change orders when the client keeps changing their mind? I have a list of 147 pro tips on my website. And pro tip number 1 is document, document, document. Always document. Document everything that's said, everything that you get in writing. Document everything. Okay, and then if the customer is always doing changes, make sure that you have a standardized process for change orders. Have them submit you a written request for additional work. Then you create a standardized change order form, and what you're going to say, here is how much it's going to cost for labor, material, here's the impact of schedule, here's the dollar value, here's the terms and conditions. And then make sure that you communicate, which is rule number 2 on my project list. Communicate, communicate, communicate the delays. Customers don't think about that. They'll be doing the middle of a project. Hey, let's put 2 more drops over there on that wall. You might already be working on a very tight schedule. So let them know, okay, well, we have two options here. If we do it now, we can do it, but there's going to be a change order associated. Or we can treat it as a separate project afterwards because scope creep kills a project. Customers always add stuff. They never think about how them asking you to do additional information impacts your job. So they don't ever think about that. Next question. What's the best way to track materials across multiple sites? Project management software, Microsoft Projects 360. There's another one too. I can't think of the name off the top of my head. I think it begins with S, but I asked them to be on the show too. We're just in the process of negotiating that right now, trying to get them to come on. So project management software, because you're never going to remember every project managers typically will manage 3 to 5, maybe to 7 projects at a time. And they're all going to be at different stages. So you need help. And for each one of those projects, create a material log. And you already have the log. You have a bill of materials. Copy it, paste it into a new document, add a column for ordered, a column for received, a column for delivered to the crew on site, and then just put dates in there as you do it. It's a great way to track materials, right? And then also make sure that as a project manager that you have the expectation for your project technicians, your lead technicians, your project foreman to sign for all the deliveries and then send you or copy for you or take pictures and email you the sheets of the bill of materials of stuff that came in. So that way you can verify that it got in there. Okay. Next question. How do I make my daily reports more useful to my boss? Have you asked what your boss wants to see? That's the first question. What does the boss want to see? I bet you he's going to want to see manpower. How many people are on the job site? How many hours you burning? I guarantee he's going to want to see, I'm saying he, but it could be she. I guarantee they are going to want to know what work did you complete? What work did you complete? And did you come across any things on a job site that where there's a potential change order coming down the pike? So issues. You know, the painters painted the telecom room so you couldn't dress out the cables because they were in there painting, right? A picture's worth 1,000 words, and almost everybody's walking around with a smartphone nowadays. Take pictures. They say a lot. And then send it to it. Send them to your project manager or to your boss. I mean, and then one of the things I learned not too long ago was when it comes to emails, and I've gotten this way too. Don't write 5 or 6 or 7 paragraphs. Don't write a book. Bulletize it. Say, you can probably bulletize it into 4 or 5 bullets. So that way they can read through it and get the high level understanding. If you still want to put the documentation, put that behind it, but put the bullets up the first. Say quick summary, and then list 4 or 5 bullets, and then say background, and then go. If you really want to write, then you can write all your stuff. And the biggest thing I can tell you when it comes to writing daily reports, don't sugarcoat it. Be honest about it. If you're going to miss a target, yes, we're going to miss this schedule. But don't just say, hey, we're going to miss it. Give the owner, or in this case, you might be a project manager or the owner of the company you're doing the work for. What is your plan to get it done? And when do you plan to get it done by? Communicate. That's always going to be a good thing. And then also make sure you share wins too. So, if you're doing something good, put it in there. And if it's because of your crew, make sure you give credit to the crew. You're only as good as you trained your crews. Next question. How do I balance the schedule when other trades delay us? Okay. Project management class. They talk about critical paths for your scope. Know it. Understand it. And then usually on your medium to larger size jobs, you're going to have weekly construction meetings with the general contractor. Communicate those issues. Say, look, how about this? How about being proactive? Say, look, we need to make sure that everybody's done with the telecom rooms by January 24th because we're going to start doing cable. That way, when you go there, the painter's not in there painting it on you. Okay. And then also make sure you always have a plan B or maybe even a plan C. What happens if they are in there? Is there something you can shift and go do something else on the same job site with minimal impact? Right? That's called risk mitigation. Risk mitigation. Question number 5. And it's not number 5. I lost count of the questions. What makes a great foreman stand out? Somebody who plans ahead, somebody who doesn't wing it, somebody who communicates not only to their direct reports, but also back to the office, the project managers, the customers. Somebody who learns how to coach and not criticize, and somebody who keeps a clean job site and clean paperwork. The biggest area that low voltage technicians struggle with is paperwork. They don't see the value in it because they're not a project manager, right? So good paperwork, because that paperwork could be the difference between your project getting back charged or not. Okay. Question number 6. How can I keep morale up when a job site is dragging? That's a good one. A lot of projects are going to be 1 week, 2 week, 3 weeks. But then you get on some larger projects. Like I was on a project that when I worked for Hinkles McCoy, the project was 15 years. 15 years. Yeah. And so learn how to celebrate the small wins weekly. Call out when people do stuff right, have weekly meetings, call them out, say, hey, this person did this and great job because of this. We are bad about patting people on the back. We're great at yelling at people when they do stuff wrong. But a good manager is going to learn how to celebrate those wins in public, so everybody can hear it. And then maybe when you do these weekly meetings, maybe bring in pizza or coffee. If you do it in the morning, maybe bring in donuts. That doesn't cost that much. It doesn't cost that much. It really doesn't. And then maybe even think about rotating crews to avoid burnout. You do get tired of going to the same job site, doing the same thing day after day after day after day after day. So maybe think about rotating those, right? The cable guy, try to plan a 3-day weekend if your schedule can allow it. That really helps people deal with the stress. That's actually a great idea. I used to love doing 410s. When I was an estimator, I always estimated my projects instead of 5/8. I always estimated 410s. And that way the crew would have the 3-day weekends, just like the cable guy says. Question number 7. What should I learn to prepare for managing a multi-million-dollar projects later? And this comes to me on YouTube comments. Okay, so here we're going to talk about budgeting and estimating. Understand how that money flows. Understand the estimating process. What is a request for proposal, request for quote, terms and conditions, how to read the Gantt chart, how to read critical pathways. And learn how that goes. And learn contract language. Again, project managers, we're good at, pulling, terminating, testing cables, but we suck at project management. So learn contract language. Maybe take a class at your local community college on contracts, right? Communication skills, always write everything down and stay organized. So those are my questions for tonight. For those of you who submitted questions, I appreciate you guys, everybody being here. I ran a little over tonight. I had a couple extra questions I had to go through. Remember, always submit me your questions. You never know, I might pick them up and answer them on one of the live streams. And I love getting questions. And also remember, knowledge is power. So do me a favor, if you're not already, please subscribe to the podcast or recommend the podcast to somebody so they can watch it as well too. And then also, I don't know if you notice, I've got advertisers on the podcast now. Maybe reach out to those people who support the podcast through advertising and say, hey, I heard your advertisement on Let's Talk Cabling, and maybe get them to talk to you about stuff. That will help me a lot. Alrighty. All right, everybody. Until next time, remember, knowledge is power. All right, my TikTok peeps.